This is Terry Milevsky for CBC News correspondent in southern India, where we have come to hear the astonishing story of a former Ottawa civil servant named Chandrasekhar Sankurathri. He's a man who turned a devastating personal loss into a new life, not just for himself, but for thousands of others. This is the story of a ray of light which has fallen on an impoverished place. We are in southern India, the state of Andhra Pradesh. It is the rice bowl of a huge and fast-growing nation of 1 billion. And yet, for those who plant the rice and cut the sugarcane, India's economic resurgence is a distant concept. In fact, outside the cities, little has changed for the 75 million people of Andhra Pradesh. In these villages, most people cannot even read and write. And their children can expect no better. Schools are primitive, and a life under the blazing sun with a poor diet means that millions of people end up crippled by blindness. It is fate, they say. It's always been this way. But fate can change. It has for Adi Lakshmi. She is 7 years old and she's getting ready for school in Kakinada, a rural backwater where a decent education and basic health care are things to dream about. Adi's family doesn't have much. A few chickens, a couple of water buffaloes. Her father is a laborer and her mother takes care of the kids. And if Adi were like millions of other kids in rural India, school wouldn't be much to look forward to, with overcrowded classrooms and underqualified teachers. Still, her mother says Adi's learning things she never had a chance to learn. The family speaks only Telugu, the language of Andhra Pradesh. But Adi is going to learn Hindi and English and a lot more. She likes drawing, she says, and social studies, and science, and mathematics. And as she sets off with a friend, Adi Lakshmi walks right past the sleepy government school where students graduate barely able to read and write. These students have somewhere else to go, a school with much higher standards than that. And 100 other kids from surrounding villages arrive at the same time, all brushed and cleaned in neat new uniforms, despite the poverty of their homes. They have come to a school which is, for them, the chance of a lifetime. It was founded by a former government scientist from Ottawa named Chandrasekhar Sankurathri, known here as Dr. Chandra.
I needed purpose for my life. I want to do something useful with my life. So that's why I quit my job in Canada.
Dr. Chandra's skin is strangely bleached by a disorder called vitiligo, often blamed on stress. And of that, he's had more than his share. The story begins on the other side of the world. On the day his wife and children left Canada for a vacation on Air India's Flight 182 to London.
Canada, India, 182, good morning.
It was June of 1985, almost 20 years ago. The pilot checked in with Shannon Airport as he flew over the coast of Ireland.
Air India, 182 is 51 north, 15 west at 0.
And those were his last words. Moments later, a strangled sound. Then silence.
Air India India 1827. Air India 182.
It was a bomb placed by Sikh separatists. 329 lives were lost in the Atlantic Ocean. Whole families were wiped out. Dr. Chandra's wife and his 2 children were among them, and he was left wondering what the point of his own life was.
I struggled for 3 years. I didn't know what I was doing. I was going to work every day morning, coming back in the evening. At work, no problem. But when I come home, it used to hit me that I'm so lonely there. What happened to my family? They're not there anymore. So I could not reconcile, nor can I ever accept it. What is the purpose for me? Why should I go and make this living? For whose sake I'm doing here? So ultimately I said, no, it's not for me, so I had to do something useful.
Chandrasekhar Sankurathri always wanted to do something useful. Before his family was destroyed, he was an immigrant success story, a student from India who studied hard in Canada, got his PhD and landed a job as a biologist with the federal government. His wife Manjari was a talented musician, and their 2 children were born in Canada, their son Shri Kiran, which means ray of light, and a daughter, Sarada, named for a Hindu goddess. They were aged 6 and 3 when they died with their mother on Air India. The bodies were never found. Their father kept roaming the Irish coastline, hoping somehow to find them.
I had never seen their bodies also, so I didn't know. I still think they're somewhere there. I used to think that way for many, many years. And after 3 years I said, no, what I'm doing here?
He kept thinking about his wife Manjari's concern for the poor in her home state of Andhra Pradesh. Finally, he cashed in his Canadian pension, took a settlement from Air India, and moved back here to her neighborhood, Kakinada. He could afford to retire in comfort here, but that is not at all what he had in mind. Instead, he wanted to fill his life with people, especially children.
So what we decided was, maybe if we have a school, we can help a lot of children this way. Thereby, we provide the quality education for them.
A quality education for Dr. Chandra is serious business.
Attention. Stand it is.
This is morning assembly at the Sarada school, which is named for the daughter he lost. Here, a quality education means a ticket out of poverty, and there is no fooling around. If you show up late, you'll stick out like a sore thumb, standing there with your backpack until it's over. Instead of routine announcements, the kids line up solemnly to recite prayers. They pledge their loyalty to their country, to their teachers, to their neighbors, and to their gods. Adi Lakshmi doesn't know all the words yet, but she's still in 1st grade, and the school will keep her until grade 7. She'll learn to read and write, and she'll be taught to honor the Hindu goddess of knowledge, named Saraswati. After the assembly, there is a ritual walk around the statue of the goddess, who is sometimes also known as Sarada, the name of the school and of the girl who inspired it. Saraswati rides upon a swan and plays an instrument called a veena. She is the goddess of education, the arts, music. Here, the grade 7 kids are in charge of setting up the blackboard for the teacher. Then they wait in silent contemplation for her to arrive. She is the headmistress, Hema, and she happens to be the sister of Dr. Chandra.
Namaste.
Hema teamed up with her brother after he lost his family, and they started this school 12 years ago. Each year they added one more grade until they had grades 1 through 7. Don't mumble, she tells them. Speak up and speak clearly. Don't be shy. And this is how the school day unfolds, with the kids sitting on the sand underneath the huge mango trees of Kakinada. It's easy to forget that these well-dressed, clean-cut kids are very poor and would have no chance of a decent education if they didn't have this school. But they don't forget it. They seem to know they'd better seize this opportunity.
Mathematics and science.
You get a sense of that when you ask them what they're interested in and how many have parents who cannot read and write. Most of the hands go up, and for themselves, they have bigger ambitions. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Teacher.
English teacher.
English teacher.
Doctor.
Doctor. Uh-huh.
Doctor. 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 Teacher. Doctor. Police. Teacher.
Doctor.
Social teacher.
Doctors, teachers, they want to be useful. Thank you all very much.
Welcome, sir.
It's a delight to meet these kids, but it's even more delightful to know what their parents pay to give them this leap into the future. The answer is nothing. It's free. All of it. Books, uniforms, the works. The school doesn't get a dime from the government or the parents. For the 109 kids here, the school is funded entirely by charitable donations raised by Dr. Chandra, the scientist from Canada who makes it all happen. They don't come on a school bus. They come on your bus.
That's right. There are no school buses here. School bus is our bus for them.
So everything you provide,
Yes.
meals,
Yeah.
the
Transportation,
uniforms,
yeah.
transportation, books,
Yeah.
everything.
Everything, yeah. Including medical checkups and medicines also, if needed.
Normally, for children like these growing up in a tiny village in rural India, the future doesn't hold very many options. We are a long way here from the new high-tech booming India. For these children, the future holds, for the girls perhaps helping their mothers at home, for the boys working in the fields, and that's about it. But these particular children are very fortunate to live in this district near this school, which can give them options, the ability to dream of something better, not just to get a better job, but perhaps to teach others. So it's a dramatic step, not just for them, but for their families and for the next generation. Interestingly, this deep change is accompanied by a deep reverence for tradition and good manners and discipline. This is lunchtime. Some of these kids got little or no breakfast, but nobody's eating until everything's all lined up perfectly. Nobody's talking either, and they still don't eat until they've said their prayer. This is known as the Brahma Pranam. It's in Sanskrit, not in the local Telugu, and it's a traditional prayer giving thanks for the food. And no wonder they seem to mean it. This may be the only decent meal some of these children get today. And when they finally do eat, silence reigns. It's a monastic atmosphere. They are quiet at meal times. They're very well behaved. You run a very tight ship.
Yes.
Why is that?
Unless we impart a discipline, I don't think we can bring the best out of any kid. I believe it. Not only kid, any human being, as a matter of fact. So I think discipline comes first, then comes education to me. So since the beginning, I'm very strict about discipline. Something has to go according to the plan, the way we say it. There's no compromise there. There's no negotiation also.
No negotiations. Behind Dr. Chandra's mild manners, there is some steel. The kids and the parents know that they must follow the rules.
We tell the parents, look, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this, which are very simple. One thing is, they have to give them a bath every day. Second thing is, we give them 2 sets of uniforms. They should send with a clean uniform every day. That means the mom has to wash the clothes every day when the kid goes back home. Third thing is girls should be cleaned, hair should be combed properly with the 2 braids. Boys should be given haircut once every month.
After 12 years, Dr. Chandra now has 10 teachers to help him. And as we shall see, the school is only the beginning of his work here. But he still fits in a science class each day. He's not a medical doctor, he was a biologist for the Canadian Ministry of Health. And today's lesson is about food, about the staples of the South Indian diet. Watching closely, you see a little of what he might have been like as a father. And you see the kids responding. He says he can't ever get his own lost children out of his mind, but this helps.
The way I do now here, every time I see children, I always remember my children. It gives me joy to see children like that.
It sounds as though you have built a new family.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I feel that way too. Yeah.
And it seems to work both ways. For many of these kids, school is a welcome relief from home.
What they like here probably, Terry, I think, the love and affection they get from the teachers. I think that is the fundamental issue here, because at home parents are too busy doing their own chores. So they never care for the children. They just, street kids, literally in that sense. So I think when they come to the school, they know that they get a lot of attention. And I think that's a big plus point, I think.
Have you ever had any dropouts?
Not at all since last 12 years.
None?
None at all.
No dropouts
No
in
dropout.
12 years?
Yes. Now our first batch of kids are in the second year college, all of them. We are very proud of their achievement in that respect.
Note that he is proud of their achievement, not his own. You would forgive him for being well satisfied to see so many children launched into a better life, but he's not. In fact, right from the start, Dr. Chandra planned to achieve much more than merely giving penniless kids a good school. When we return, a look at an even more extraordinary achievement right next door to the school. It is long past school hours at Dr. Chandra's compound in Kakinada, a rural district of southern India. But the school is only part of his story. After dark, the school bus is still at work, roaming distant villages and collecting new passengers. They are the blind and the half-blind. They've traveled for 4 hours over bad roads because they've been told that their sight will be restored. 100 of them emerge slowly into a strange world, a bustling eye hospital. Have they even seen any kind of doctor other than your doctor?
Probably not. These people live in a very remote areas where there are no ophthalmologists. And this is the reason why we go to those places and try to help them and tell them their cataract blindness can be cured by a very small operation. They are very happy to be here. That's why they come with us.
Do they know what's going to happen? Do they understand the procedure?
They may not know exactly what's happening or what's going to happen to them, but I think they know they came for help. They know that much. They cannot see very well, and they hope to see better after this trip.
But they just know that there's a doctor who's going to heal their sight.
That's right, yeah. They know that. They came with a good faith to us.
They have come in good faith to the Srikiran Institute of Ophthalmology. It's named for the 7-year-old boy, Dr. Chandra's son from Ottawa, who died in the Air India bombing of 1985. And that name, Srikiran, means God's ray of light. A light is shining now on Kakinada Reddy. He is a watchman, a blind watchman. Thick cataracts have developed in his eyes, and for a year now he's been finding his way around with a stick. He is one of 150 patients here on this day, and one of millions in India. This country has about a quarter of all the world's blind people, a fact blamed on genetics, on the burning sun, and on vitamin deficiencies. And yet India has not begun to cope with the problem.
They say close to 15 million people are blind in India. Out of this 15 million, 80% are blind only due to cataracts.
80% of them are curable.
Yes, exactly.
If only a cure were available, if only doctors were available.
That's right.
So, to have any impact, you have to go out into the villages to find the blind. They call this an outreach camp. We're in a remote village called Katamuru. 192 people have heard about the camp and want to have their clouded eyes checked by a team from the Sri Kiran Institute. It's led by ophthalmologist Venkata Subbarao.
I'm feeling very proud to work here with people, and I'm seeing so many cases, and I'm giving good vision for the very poor people.
If you waited for these people to come to the hospital, it wouldn't work. They wouldn't come. For one thing, very few of them even know that cataracts are curable. And for another, they don't have the means to travel. So every week, 3 times a week, the doctors come out here to the villages around the district to spread the word that treatment is available and free. And in this one village on this day, the outreach camp finds 89 people who do need cataract surgery. That's nearly half of all those who came for a checkup. It is a big event in the life of the village, and now fireworks herald the arrival of a distinguished visitor. He is the local member of parliament, Palam Raju. Raju is a software mogul and a rising star in the governing Congress party of Sonia Gandhi. He is here to salute Dr. Chandra's work.
I think what he is doing is great work, and with absolutely selfless motive.
Still, as a government member, Raju also has to explain why the Indian government cannot do what one private citizen can do. Look, he says, this is India.
We have only about 10 to 15% of the people who are educated, who are exposed, who have access to opportunity, as against about 60% who live in villages, who are working for their next meal. I won't say that they're starving, but they're just working. They have to work all along to get their next meal.
Subsistence farming?
That's right. So in such a situation, let's say medical care doesn't become a priority. And even if they have an eye condition, they think it's a matter of life and it cannot be cured. That's where Dr. Chandrasekhar steps in. He's been creating awareness. He's been taking these medical camps to the villages, and he's been, getting a lot of people enthused on this.
Officially, Palam Raju is here to cut the ribbon to open the outreach camp. Actually, it long since started without him, but no matter. For both men, the real issue here is the overwhelming number of those in need. In India, 7 million new cases of cataracts arise every year, but only 2 million of those get the surgery they need. Raju says the other 5 million a year are just too much for the government to take on.
When we have a limited amount of funds, and with which we are trying to do a number of things, and with numbers like this, whatever planning we do may fail because of the numbers.
Just too many.
There's just too many.
Still, that is an excuse you don't hear from Dr. Chandra as he patrols the crowded hallways of his eye hospital. Just feeding so many is a challenge. He is faced with a daily influx of eye patients who are mostly destitute and who simply won't eat if they're not fed for free. So Dr. Chandra's kitchen crew feeds 400 people a day. That's 150 patients, 150 staff, plus the 100 children from the school next door. The patients are told to finish their food, wash their hands, don't smoke. This is a hospital. It's getting late, and after their long journey to get here, the patients are tired and plainly apprehensive. They're not used to getting help from the world outside their villages. You can see them wondering what happens now. They are shepherded through a round of eye exams. Here you can see the cataract in his eye. Then there is some form filling with the help of Dr. Chandra's staff. They are mostly local people who get training, a small salary, and room and board. They're quite used to patients who don't know how to sign their names and who must mark their consent form for cataract surgery with a thumbprint. There is one more thing before bedtime. The patients must have their eyelashes trimmed to guard against infections after surgery. But nobody seems to talk much about what's going to happen in the morning when the surgeon will make a tiny incision in each patient's eye, then remove the clouded lens and insert a new plastic lens. Finally, they sleep on the floor. With so many patients, the surgeon starts very early. At first, it looks pretty much like any hospital as the surgeon scrubs before going to work. But to make a dent in the daunting numbers of patients here, Dr. Madhavi Ganta. But Western experts say getting good really doesn't do justice to the extraordinary speed and the high quality of the surgery that is done here at the Sri Kiran Institute. Partly that is due to the large staff backing up the doctor. But still, 150 surgeries a day is 10 times as many as a surgeon will do in the West, and it comes at a fraction of the price. Dr. Gunter, for example, who's one of 5 ophthalmologists here, is paid about $1,500 a month. And she really does work on each patient for 3 minutes or less. Then it's off with the used gloves, on with the new, and while one patient is under the knife, another is being led out, another is on his way in. It's a highly choreographed assembly line. Dr. Gunter says the key to their productivity here is that she's not bogged down by bureaucracy like doctors in the West. Cataract surgery is a life-changing experience, whatever country you're in. But it still inspires awe to see its impact on people who couldn't possibly pay for it and who otherwise would be condemned to darkness for the rest of their lives.
He could never see before. Now everything is so clear. He says he can see the shirt white. You are looking, your face is very clear.
It takes a few days for the full effect to emerge, but still, it's a new world.
He says now he can go back to work because he can see.
His name is Kusam Pudi. He lists his job as coolie, a farm worker. Next to him is Kamapati, who went blind in his right eye at the age of only 54. Now he sees a strange sight, a white guy, he says, and he has a red nose. Yesterday's mood of anxiety is melting away.
I'm seeing so well, that's why I'm smiling, he's saying. That's what Mrs.
Kakinada Reddy, the blind watchman we saw before the surgery, is one of those now seeing again.
I can work as long as I want now because I can see 2 grandchildren. So he'll be able to see them again, that's what he's saying. It's amazing to see their reactions. It's really gratifying to see that satisfaction, the feeling on their faces, elderly people, you know. Those who thought they had reached the end of their life, end of the tunnel.
Now Kakinada Reddy gets his final check before going home. Already he can read most of the numbers, and his sight will improve further in the days to come. Instead of groping around with the aid of a stick, he'll go back to work and he'll get follow-up care from the Sri Kiran Institute. Kosampudi does well too, even though he can't read at all. They're used to that here, so they use a special eye chart with nothing but E's on it. He just has to say which way they're facing. Meanwhile, Dr. Chandra is checking on the women patients in the next room. Nagama makes her living washing clothes. Her right eye was beyond repair, but her left eye has been saved.
She can see everything. You can see all the colors.
Dr. Chandra tells Nagama that her eye is still watery, but it will get even better in the days ahead. The fears we saw on these faces last night are giving way to curiosity. What does the world look like now?
Emma, I don't know.
Mother, how are you doing? He asks. Fine, she says, thanks. And he jokes, are you going home or do you want to stay? She's going home, thanks. Well, take care of yourself, he says. The men, too, are crowding around to say it worked.
Yesterday they could not see anything.
Can he see colors? Can he see detail? He shakes his head. In India, that means yes. They're all shaking their heads.
They could not work before. Now they can happily work because they can see better.
150 lives have changed overnight, and it didn't cost much. The high volume of cases and the low salaries all bring the cost of each cataract surgery way down to about $50, including transportation and follow-up care. That compares with about $3,000 in North America. Even so, doctors who have looked at the quality of the work here say it's similar to what they see in the US or Canada.
So it's a compelling story and it's a Canadian that's involved, right?
We checked on that with an ophthalmologist at the Eye Institute in Ottawa, Dr. Karim Damji.
You know, if I had to get my cataracts done and I happen to be in that part of the world, I'd go there. I mean, it's a very good quality facility. So right now they focus on cataract and glaucoma.
Dr. Damji has visited Kakinada twice and has returned a believer.
The Eye Institute is superb. I mean,
He says Dr. Chandra's team doesn't have all the latest gadgets, but can still teach Western doctors a thing or two. And for Dr. Chandra, it's a point of pride that the rate of complications is low. Don't touch your eye, he tells this patient. Take your medicine, listen to the doctor. What about when they go home and they live in a situation where they don't have clean water? How do they keep themselves clean? How do they prevent infection?
We try to counsel them thoroughly before they go. During the 2-day stay in the hospital, they're constantly being bombarded with information. How to take care of the eye, how to safeguard the eye, prevent the injuries to the eye. They are the most important things. That's why we don't see that many infections.
If there were problems, of course, the word would be out in the villages where the outreach camps go to seek out the blind. But the opposite is happening. People have come to trust the name that means ray of light, Sri Kiran. Chandrasekhar Sankurathri's one-man war on blindness is moving so fast now that his Sri Kiran Institute has done 95,000 cataract surgeries. Add to that about 500,000 outpatients who have come here for other eye problems like glaucoma. And all of it is organized by one driven individual who wanted to make himself useful after his wife and children were killed in the Air India bombing. It raises many questions. What is it that drives him? And how does he pay for all this? And what does he think of the Air India trial? More on all of that when we return. The remarkable mission of Chandrasekhar Sankurathri has changed the face of this teeming and impoverished part of southern India. The Kakinada district has come to depend on his school, his eye hospital, and the jobs they provide. But you have to wonder where the money comes from. You're not a rich guy. You're not Bill Gates with all kinds of money.
No, I'm not.
How do you pay for all of this?
I'm not doing alone. Many people got involved here. I have a dedicated staff here. They all work with commitment, sincerity towards our goals. We raise some donations in India and Canada again. Government, we get some subsidies from the Indian government for helping the poor people's surgeries and all that. Somehow we're able to manage.
Simply put, Dr. Chandra depends on charity. He is supposed to get about $20 from the Indian government for each cataract surgery. That's if the bureaucracy in faraway New Delhi gets around to it. Even when it does, that still leaves most of his bills unpaid. He also gets modest contributions from established charities in North America, like Help the Aged, and from CEDA, the official Canadian aid agency. But he also depends on the kindness of strangers on the other side of the world. Like school principal Teresa Krisky and her students. This is St. Gregory's Catholic School in the Ottawa suburb of Nepean. Kids here have been raising money through bake sales and the like every year. To date, a total of $14,000.
I found that the work that Dr. Chandra is doing is absolutely unbelievable. He has taken a tragedy from his life and made it into something that is so helpful to many, many people. So how are you today? This is our 12th year of helping our friends in Kakinada, and they are so happy with us. So we got to keep that up, haven't we?
Yeah.
Principal Krisky recently visited Kakinada and still seems awestruck by what Dr. Chandra has done.
And he's kind of gentleman, very humble. So no matter how much you sing his praises, he still wants to do more. And singing his praises is not what he's after. He is truly an outstanding individual. What are some of the things that we might buy for those children in Kakinada? Yes?
Book bags.
Book bags might be helpful, yes. For one thing, to be into the school, that was quite a thrill for me. But yes, I was quite moved.
A visit to Kakinada does have that effect on people. It's not every day you see such an impact being made on a district mired in poverty. It's taken 12 years to get to this point, to grow from a few kids sitting under a tree to 100 kids in a real school, and to grow from a little hospital to a big one. And yet another astonishing part of this story is that Chandrasekhar Sankurathri says it's still not enough. He wants to do more.
This hospital should be established as a good tertiary eye care hospital and a self-sustainable hospital. That's one. Second thing is school. I want to start some sort of a vocational training program for unemployed youth. That should be set up before I retire.
So he's still not satisfied, which means his need for funding is only going to grow.
So far, luckily, I should say, there's not a single day we stopped the work for lack of money. I think it's all divine grace. I can say that it's not our greatness, but somehow we're able to sell to thousands of people.
Sometimes you get a little close, though, don't you?
Yes,
to the edge?
They were very close calls. Sometimes we wonder, how are you going to pay salaries for this month?
Still, the subject of money doesn't seem to interest him much. What seems to matter to him instead is that the memory of his wife and children be honored and that their names live on.
It's a long struggle every day, day in and out and all that. Even after coming here, it's still struggle. My families are still, even till today, after 20 years, still they're back of my mind always, They're never question of forgetting that. You can't erase those memories. They are forever there. As long as I live, I have to live with them, I know that.
For many of the Air India victims' families, those painful memories are prominent now because, on the other side of the world, in Vancouver, The verdict in the Air India trial is just 3 days away, on Wednesday. Even so, Dr. Chandra doesn't pay much attention to it.
I'm diverting all those my feelings or my frustration towards something good for the people. Thereby I keep myself happy and try to not to think about that too often.
Do you even care anymore about the trial, what the result is? Do you read the news?
No,
You're not interested.
I'm not interested. Only thing is, if ever I face them, I want to ask them why they did it. If they have a consciousness, they should feel it. Otherwise, it doesn't bother me at all.
To the others who lost loved ones, he says, move on.
Forget and forgive, and you get on with your life. Don't be, vengeful, and you want to see that, somebody should get punished. And by doing so, we are so preoccupied in that, and we cannot do anything in life. 20 years has gone by. If I didn't do just sitting there waiting for something to happen for those criminals, what did I achieve in life? Nothing, right?
Instead, day after day in his little corner of India, Chandrasekhar Sankurathri is changing a seemingly unchangeable history of illiteracy and blindness. Along the way, he has made sure that the names of his family will live on. His wife Manjari, and little Sarada, and Shrikiran, a ray of light. This is Terry Malevsky in Kakinada, India, for CBC News correspondent.